And we're back with you now on WMBC's Hometown. Income inequality has long been a problem across the country and across the world. The top 1% of society in the U.S. owns about 88% of the wealth. It used to be the top 2, but the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer. Those gaps have changed over in just recent years. Well, today we welcome a special author to our studio. He is the author of the book The Third Way, which discusses income inequality and a whole host of other topics. He is Mr. Upendra Chivukula, and we thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for having me.
Well, the third way, I mean, you think about the first way, the second way to make money, to own capital wealth. What is the third way and what's behind the book?
Well, look at this. Socialism is fair but doesn't work. Capitalism works but is not fair because of the concentrated nature of the capitalism, what we see in the United States and around the world. And the third way is how do you move from concentrated capitalism to inclusive capitalism? And in a capitalistic society, you want to create more capitalists. And we suggest that through employee ownership and broad-based ownership, we can create more capitalists, and we can move from concentrated capitalism to inclusive capitalism.
Now, capitalism, as I understand, is kind of the it's the wealth, what you own, the stock, if you've got any. A lot of people think of income and, wealth as just the labor, the wages, et cetera. But capitalism is basically a much more broad base of, wealth.
Right. I think recently, when you look at there's tremendous focus on increasing the minimum wage to address the issue of income inequality. And there was a former White House economist, chief economist, Jay Bernstein, put out a report saying that one way to address income inequality is through capital income. What is capital income? Capital income is the earning power. For example, you have a tool, and that tool makes you more productive, and that you can gain more wealth out of that. And a lot of the times we look at in a technological society as we live in, and capital income, that is capital like stocks and ownership of investment real estate, that earns 24/7, whereas your labor, the wages are from maybe 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever it is only limited amount of hours.
Our founding fathers, I know, forecasted, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, they forecasted the day that too much of the wealth would be concentrated in just a few hands, and they were right, it sounds.
No, they were geniuses. I mean, they could see what's happening in the year 2016, and as you said, the concentration of the wealth they were quite afraid of. And even when Abraham Lincoln, our president, signed the Homestead Act, giving land, 160 acres of land to create ownership, and at that time, 10% of the capital was the investment, and 90% was labor. And today's technologically advanced society that we live in, exactly opposite that happened. It is 90% capital and 10% labor. So no matter how much you increase the minimum wage, you will never catch up. And so we need to increase the earning power of the people. And as I said earlier, 50% of Americans own zero capital. We have to change that. Employee-based ownership is one way you can achieve that. There are already 10,000 companies and 15 million Americans and other people in the world who have the employee ownership. And what we suggest is that by addressing the tax policies and through tax credits, you can incentivize companies so that way they can share part of their company with their employees and create more capitalists.
I know that the state has always tried to come up with more tax breaks, and the federal government is oftentimes supplying money to make these tax breaks. Now, wages and, of course, the gender wage gap, which was just in the news earlier this spring, many people are trying to narrow the gap, if not eliminate it, and make sure that men and women make about the same, based on what they do. The minimum wage also in California was just recently promised to be $15 in the very near future, and I know that other states are trying to do that. Are those all steps in the right direction?
I believe so. I just wanted to address one thing. State level, when you have like mom and pop shops in Main Street, USA, and state level, the governor, Terry Branstad of Iowa, has signed a legislation. I had introduced the legislation as an assemblyman, and it's going through the legislature now, trying to incentivize through the state tax credits mom and pop shops owners, when they retire, to sell the company to their employees, thereby keeping the jobs as well as keeping the capital in the state. And the advantages of employee-owned companies: hardworking and smart working, lower unemployment, and stability in income. That's very important. Coming back to the gender inequality, it's also affecting the minority income. Also, there is a disparity. So we need to address that issue. That is because if it's the same job, I don't see if you are capable of doing the same job, irrespective of your gender, it should not matter. You should get the same compensation. And sometimes how you measure it, some people who are against it, they say, look, you can't compare all the jobs. We're not saying we're not comparing unequal jobs, trying to compare the equal jobs and make sure that the same wages, irrespective of your gender and your ethnicity.
Is income inequality, do you feel that it's more of a problem in the U.S.? Is it more of a problem internationally? I mean, do we see these kinds of things pretty much everywhere?
Well, the United States is a leader in the world, and also we have a lot of conversation that go on. And countries like India, they have, it doesn't matter you're a man or woman, you get the same pay. Irrespective of the same job, you get the same pay. And that's why people are questioning. The United States is a leader. Why is there this income disparity and among the genders, gender disparity? And that has to be addressed. I think it is there. Income inequality is there in other countries also, because again, there are countries that have a tremendous amount of wealth accumulated in some people's hands. But there are socialistic countries, in the European countries, they try to address that. I think policies are very important. Also, the importance of the labor unions. Labor unions fought for the wage equality, and they try to do that.
Mm-hmm. Is it mostly, because I know most baby boomers are still working, and in sociology, professors talk about a lot of the Generation Xers and even some millennials can only get McJobs. That's been a term that's been, entertained. Now, is that one of the reasons why inequality exists, or is it just because the wealth is just not spread fairly across the board?
Well, there are a number of reasons for the income inequality, depending on your ideological beliefs and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think definitely the policies that we make are going to be important. If you're very conservative, you are trying to address the issue of obsessed with the balancing the budget
Mm-hmm.
and cutting down the some of the social issues. I think definitely that is an issue. Then also trade policies make a big difference, and because jobs are shifted overseas and trying to compete and some of the producers, they're trying to lower the wages so that way they can compete with the global economy. I think that is another issue that we need to look at.
Now, the third way talks about so many of these things, and a whole host of others. In your case, do you have any other books that you're working on, or are you just focusing on this one since it just came out?
I've been married to my wife for 40 years now, and when she visited India, she's a Cuban American, and when she visited India, my home, and she didn't believe that I came from there and what I've been able to accomplish. And she said, hey, I want to write about your story, and I think that is one of the things my wife is working on.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, we wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for enlightening us about everything about income inequality and the social revolution. So thanks again.
Yeah, this book, you can get it on Amazon.com, and also we have the website, thethirdwaybook.com. I think that's very important.
Very good. Thank you so much. Upendra Chivukula, who has authored the book, The Third Way. Again, you can visit thethirdwaybook.com. You want to spell out the number 3, not write out THIRD. And then also you can find it on Amazon. It discusses income inequality and a range of other topics. I'm Mark Fontes. We'll be right back with more of WMBC's Hometown.